Welcome today to Kingdom Concepts. I'm Josh, and this is my wife, Eliana. And we're so blessed to have you today as our guest. Amen. A lot of amazing things are happening right now in the world, and we know that Jesus is coming soon.
Yes, he is.
And the enemy knows that his time is short.
Yes, he does.
And he's been behaving so desperate. You can see his desperation because he knows that the judgment of God, the lake of fire, is coming. And he's releasing everything that hell has against people. And one of the areas where we've noticed where he's attacking big time, more than I've ever seen before, is when it comes to couples.
Yes.
When it comes to marriages or
Relationships.
people preparing, for relationships. And so this right here is a huge subject matter. And for those of you that haven't been on here, you can go back, like and subscribe, amen. You can binge watch all the other episodes, of what we've been talking about, because we've been given power principles on how to have a strong marriage, how to have strong relationships. And we want you to be able to be a part of this and to get that full spectrum of information. And so you can go on and sign up for it. Every Monday we have new videos that we release. And so there's always fresh content, and it's always relevant to where people are at. And so I'm ready to dive right into this today. We talked about a few of these power principles. We mentioned, when it comes to having a strong marriage, things that you and I learned is that you have to have a foundation of faith. A cord of three strands is not easily broken. So it's not just you and me having a relationship, but you, I, and the Lord.
Yes.
And then we talked about the second thing is love and respect. How important love and respect is when it comes to a relationship.
And communication was a big one too. That's a really good.
Major.
Yeah, you have to get that one really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So communication's huge. Right communication.
Right communication, because communication, yelling is not right communication.
Yeah, throwing pots and pans and or being quiet, silent treatments. It's amazing what people can say when they say nothing.
I know, right?
It is true. And then the last one that we had hit on in the previous episode was forgiveness.
Yes.
And this is a huge one.
Yes, I felt like we didn't.
So many people.
I felt like we barely scratched the surface on that. So I feel like we need to take this episode to really talk about forgiveness, because forgiveness is such a key issue in every area, not just your marriage, but in at work, at yourself, at on your job, at church, your relationship with other people. If forgiveness is something that is hard for you to do, the enemy will make sure that's something easy for you to come by. He'll make sure that forgiveness is always an area that you have to deal with by making sure that there's things that you need to forgive people for. And with that comes offense, and with offense comes bitterness, and with bitterness comes loneliness, and it shuts you out, really does. Forgiveness, it just really, it cocoons you in bitterness. It really does.
It makes you age ugly.
Yes. I always remember, I always remember this lady, and I hate that it's a vision in my head, but she was this lady, and this is in a town we used to live before. And I would go to this store, I was at Costco, and every time I would see her, she always had this look on her face, and all I could see is, this is what bitterness looks like. I didn't know the lady, I didn't know her, but you just could see it. And she always had this pursed, her lips were always pursed, and all around her lips were just these wrinkles, and you could tell it was just like from, just
frowning.
Frown. No, it wasn't a frown. It's just like the way she had held. She when she was dealing with a customer, she had that look on her face, and then when she turned around and talked to you, she was smiling. So it was like how would I say, something that she didn't even realize she was doing, but it was written all over her. And every time I would see her, it's like, that is bitterness. That is unforgiveness in the flesh. It was something that the Lord was teaching me. And when you don't allow the Holy Spirit to work through your heart and work through your life and into that place to where it's easy to forgive others, it will mess up every area of your life. It really will. And so today we want to keep going with that, because we're talking about relationships. And I feel like there's so many couples and so many marriages that have an area of forgiveness. And the hard part is, and this is what I'm going to ask you, is how do you forgive somebody when it's a constant thing, when it's something that it's this is an area that I have to forgive him for or her for all the time, an offense that keeps happening. Let's say adultery, somebody beating on you, somebody, lying to you or stealing or whatever it may be. There's people that, you have to forgive, and you forgive them, and the enemy, the Lord comes in and helps you, and you never have to go down that road again. The healing comes through because of it. But there's some, relationships that it's a constant thing, drugs, drinking, alcohol, alcoholism, so many things in there. And when you're in a relationship that it's a everyday, everyday battle to forgive, that's difficult.
It's, I know for myself, because this was a huge thing for me, because unforgiveness is like you eating poison expecting somebody else to die.
Yes.
It's going to damage you more than it's going to damage them. Because
Yes.
you have people that are offended and have unforgiveness towards people, and those people don't even know that someone's mad at them.
Yeah.
And it has such a deep hold on people sometimes, unforgiveness. I remember Dr. Seville sharing how there was this couple that he knew, these pastors, and
yes.
the man's wife had stage 4 cancer. It was severe. She was already in the hospital, like on hospice care. And the Lord told Dr. Seville, he said, fly to that town.
He woke him up.
And yeah, he woke him up in the middle of the night, said, you need to fly over there right now, go into that hospital room. He says, and tell that woman, she needs to forgive her husband, because the Lord said that the husband had committed adultery on her like 25
Yes.
years ago, and that she hasn't forgiven him. And they remained together, and the man had repented and everything. And Dr. Seville said that when he showed up and he went in there,
repented and did no more.
yeah,
That's
stop
what
no
repent
more.
was.
Yeah,
Yes.
he quit, and he told the woman what the Lord had said. The Lord told Dr. Seville, tell her that if she will forgive him, that I will heal her completely. She does not need to die. And she was on death's door
Yes.
at that moment. And he told her that. He said, God said that he will heal you completely from this cancer if you will forgive your husband. And she looked at Dr. Seville and she said, I will never forgive him. And she died.
Yeah.
Totally avoidable. But sometimes unforgiveness is so deep rooted in people. I was like that. And what helped me with it was that the Lord just basically said, Josh, you need to pray for people the way I prayed for you.
That's right.
And I'm like, how did you pray for me?
Yeah.
And he's like, Father, forgive Josh. He don't know what he's doing. That's what he prayed off the cross, And the Lord said, you need to forgive like that. And you need to, it's an act of faith. It's not a feeling. And that's one of the things I had to learn was forgiveness is not a feeling, because you don't feel like forgiving people. It's a choice. I choose to forgive you, and I pray that the feelings will change. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean I trust you. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean certain things. But what it does is it keeps me in a place to where my heart's safe.
Yes.
And then the danger zone is God said, if you cannot forgive people for their trespasses, I'm not going to forgive you for
Yes.
yours. And we've done more things worse to God than anyone has ever done
Yes.
to us. And so I had to learn to see this as something that can keep me out of heaven, because it can. And when it comes to your question, as far as the repetition, when people are in a cycle of sinning.
Well, I want to touch on a cycle of abuse, okay, when it comes to forgiveness.
Okay.
Because when we talk about forgiveness, it's one thing, I have a person, let's say I have a couple that the husband is repetitively abusing his wife physically. He's constantly, beating her. She has to forgive him. The word says to forgive him. But when is it the time that she doesn't need to stay to forgive? How do you get past that? You have a husband that is constantly, leaving the home to do drugs and coming back, or a wife, there's wives out there, or alcoholism, coming home and being belligerent and drunk, yes, there's grace in a marriage for that. There's grace in a marriage for that. I will say this right now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if you are dealing with abuse when it comes to being abused physically or emotionally, mentally, any of those things in any area, alcoholism, and you are not married, you need to run, baby. Run right now. Just run away from that situation. You are not in covenant. You need to run away from that. Now, if you are married and in that situation, there is a grace that God will give you. But you need to know very, very much to listen to the Holy Spirit, because when the grace runs out, you were supposed to not be in that situation. My husband and I will never counsel anybody for divorce, but we also never want anybody to be in a relationship where they are being harmed. They are being hurt and harmed. God doesn't want us to be in bondage in an area where we are constantly physically and emotionally, spiritually being abused. That's not right. And I feel like too many times we have these, I just saw on the news the other day, this man, the woman was going through a divorce and he ended up killing her and the children. How long had abuse been happening in that home that it got to this place? There is a time that enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do? What do you say to a woman that is still in the marriage and still staying there, or one that says, is it okay for me to leave?
I keep feeling the Lord tell me, make sure you balance it with, you have women that beat men too.
Yes.
And it's not just a one-way street. A lot of times we've stereotyped it, and that's why you have some men that are like beat up by their spouses, literally. I've known men that have been, I'm not talking about being henpecked like they're always
but that's important too. But that part too, because you have men that are not being beat physically, but are so disrespected and so to where they lose who they are as a man.
Well, you have I mean, this is a big subject here, but I'll say this, that God is looking out for us always.
Yes.
And when it comes to situations, I think that what happens, like when people are dating and you start picking up on signs, that's where you're looking to see things. You don't want to find out after you're married. I've known people that found stuff out after they were married, but you need to see those signs. And if there's things happening that go against the word of the Lord, then you need to be able to discuss anything with someone that you're planning on building a life with. And if patterns, are there and they don't change, then, and only time reveals patterns. You know what I'm saying? That's why people should take some time before they go and hitch up with folks, and get married, because, some people can fool you for a little bit. And we've seen that happen.
We have seen that happen
too many times. But when you're single and stuff like that happens, danger, Will Robinson. You need to get out of that situation. That person needs help, and you're only going to be a distraction.
That's right.
So that's one thing. If you're married, definitely you have to come to a place to where you realize that, and I've taught this to people plenty of times, that what you normalize, you can't get free from.
Yes, that's right.
And if you think it's normal for a man or a woman to constantly be berating you, or every day mad at you, beat you, or you've got a spouse that is caught up in pornography or self-gratification or adultery, just sexual perversion. It's like those are all things that destroy and take away from relationships. And sometimes what I see happens is some people think that, things just won't get any better, But this is huge, amen? And I think we'd have to dedicate some more time to discussing this. We're going to be right back, you guys.
Thank you for watching Kingdom Concepts. Kingdom Concepts is available to watch on YouTube and listen on Apple Podcasts. For more information, please visit joshuabolgerministries.org. Get connected with us. Follow, like, and subscribe on all of our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. For JB and merch, please visit joshuabolgerministries.org. We invite you to West Coast Believer Center International in Visalia, California. Services are on Sundays and Thursdays. For more information on place and times, please visit wcbci.org. Now, back to our show.
Welcome back, everyone. When you were asking what point do you get to?
Yes.
Well, the Bible tells us something in Colossians chapter 3, verse 13. And if you wouldn't mind reading that, I want to read that before I respond. Colossians 3:13.
It says, forbearing one another and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye.
So he says we need to bear with each other and forgive one another, because sometimes you're going to make mistakes. The challenge is that when someone has a cycle of sin.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? To where it's not this is when you know it's not a mistake. It's like if it happens more than 2 times, it's a choice.
Yes.
You know, and often what happens is you'll have people that'll just hunker down, and religion has put it in people that you just have to suffer with it and deal with it. So you have had people in abusive situations, toxic situations, to where it wasn't just the spouse that was in danger. Now the children are in
Yes.
danger, the family's in danger. And the moment that you see those things, it's like, yes, be quick to forgive. The Bible says be quick to forgive. Forgiveness isn't something that people should have to earn from you.
Yes.
It's also a choice for you to forgive. You know, and in situations that are complex, like what you had mentioned with abuse or pornography or drugs, substances and things, you have to sometimes give that person to the Lord and let God and them deal with it. You forgive them, you love them, but I would never counsel a man or a woman to stay in a home with an abusive spouse, because it escalates.
Yes.
I've seen it happen, not just as a Christian. Man, I've seen it happen in life. Man, I grew up watching dudes do stuff, watching women do things, and it leads to more violence, because it always gets pushed. It goes from words to a hand slap to something being thrown towards other things. It graduates, and what will happen is you can kind of be like the story of the toad in the water. You know, you put it on the stove, stick a toad in the water, and you crank the oven on, and as the water gets hotter and hotter, because the toad is so conditioned to the temperature of the water, it'll stay there and allow itself to be boiled to death. And sometimes the same thing can happen to people, to where you're in these toxic situations, to where you think it's normal for you to be covering up black eyes with makeup.
Yeah.
You think it's normal for you to have to make excuses for, oh, I fell down again, or something like that. You have to give them to the Lord. You have to come to that place where it's like, God, what do I do? Because God will lead you to a place of safety, to where that person can get the help they need, but you don't have to be in the same home while they're making changes. And it's a difficult decision, but it's something that the person needs to make. But I think it also goes back to, you should have counsel.
Yes.
And a lot of people are afraid to go to people, even sometimes pastors and leaders at times, because they're embarrassed. They're like, I shouldn't be dealing with this. We're Christians. But the fact of the matter is that 1 in every 2 marriages ends in divorce in the church and outside the church. And a lot of times, if you have these things that are taking place and they've never allowed anyone in to try to help, that's one of the first things you should do, is allow someone in, accountability, and go from there. What's the response? Do both parties want help? And if they don't, then you need to make a decision right then and there. But often what happens is people will allow things to escalate to a point where it cannot be hidden in the home no more. Something happens that reveals it all. But then it's like the house is burned down, and now you're calling the fire department to come and save your relationship, to where it's like you should have reached for that when you first seen the signs.
And you said a pattern. A pattern happens when the same thing is repeated over and over again. So the pattern ends up showing up in the kids, the grandkids. It's like in this lineage, or in these men or whatever, in this kind of lineage, the men hit the wives. The wives are there, or a woman is she ends up with an abuser, and she saw her mom in an abusive relationship. She ends up with a husband that is doing the same things that she always abhorred and didn't like, that was happening in her home, and she ends up attracting that same kind of relationship, ends up in that kind of relationship. It's become a pattern, because that is something that is normal. It's not normal for certain things to happen, like in our home. It's not normal for our children to see me and you fist fighting. It's not normal for our children to see anything huge like that. That's not normal. But in other places it is. It's like you said, that it becomes normal and a pattern. That right there should be so important for a woman or a man to say, this will not be normal for my children. My children, and making the decision to not be in that kind of relationship. If you have children, it should be this is not going to be a normal thing for my children. My children are not going to grow up in a home where there's abuse, physically, emotionally, all of those things. There has to be a stop no more.
Well, I'm going to tell you where the stop point is the first time someone does it.
Yeah.
Physically, First time, man, you better get some attention, because that right there is revealing something.
Yes.
I think the challenge that I've seen happen with so many men and women, especially on the woman's side, I'll say, is that Satan, what he's doing is he's stripping you of your worth.
Yes.
It's like he's trying to make you feel like you
Yes.
deserve this. You
Yes.
can't do better than this. And then he'll add to it to where elements like this, you know, where you have 3 children, what kind of a man would want to be with a woman that's got 3 or 4 kids?
Yes.
Or
I've been divorced already.
Yeah, you've already been divorced, you know, or you've got kids from multiple parents, or
Yes.
I mean, it's endless what Satan will do to try to trap people in a situation. Or the worst thing is you fear for your life.
Yes.
Where you know this guy's going to kill me, or this woman's going to kill me. And
now let me just say that right there. Do you, like you said the first time, do you believe that a husband or a wife could make some kind of mistake like that, where it comes to adultery or it comes to, you know, abuse, and it be something that they repent of and never repeat again? Do you believe that with God those things can stop no more?
I believe this, and this is my opinion. I believe any man, especially, but man or woman, that would get physical with someone that they love, first time, you better find out why that happened. That's not a mistake. That is a major departure from the nature of God. And it's like, what would cause you to think that you can do that to somebody, to physically assault them? Don't tell me that's a mistake. Don't tell me, you know,
I'm not saying it's that's
no, what I'm saying is that you have to see it for what it is, because sin needs to be exceedingly sinful. But if you tolerate that, it's going to continue. It's like making out. You know what? You start off, you know, first base. You made it to first base, you know, and then here you go, you make it to second base. Well, the next time you play ball again, you're not starting off at first base. You're going right to where you made it the furthest you made it last time. I'm starting off at second base. It's the same thing with abuse. They never, if they starts off with words and then it goes to being slapped and then being punched, trust me, the next fight is not going to be words. It's going to be a punch. That's what happens. Satan's trying to graduate things, and if you live like that, you'll begin to normalize it, and victims will start making excuses for why it was okay to be assaulted. I've known too many women that apologize for their black eyes, and it just
we could tell that that's very upsetting to you. But my question was,
I don't play that.
My question was, do you believe that if a man has done that, or a woman can do that, with God, do you believe it could stop no more, never again?
I think that with God in a good old-fashioned woodshed experience, no, I'm just kidding. I think that, God can change anybody. He absolutely can. But you don't have to stay in an environment where that person's receiving their change. Let them pour themselves into getting some help. And so this is a huge thing, but God is definitely able to change it all. I've seen it happen.
Yes, I've seen it happen. I can personally tell you that it happened. You know, not you've never, but I remember growing up. Okay, my dad was to me, my dad was the best man ever, and my parents were together for over 40 years, and I physically never ever seen my father ever hit my mother, never strike my mother, never, my parents never ever even argued with each other in front of us. They just never did. You know, my parents were Catholic, grew up Catholic, and didn't know what I know in the Word. But I remember my uncle, he was very, very abusive. And we would get phone calls all the time, and we would go and show up, and my aunt was black and blue, broken hands, broken everything. And we would show up to help my parents, help my aunt. And my mom and dad would take her from the situation and would hide her, would do all of those things. And I remember at one time when we were sitting there, and I remember we had come back from that situation, and we're in the kitchen, and I asked my mom, and by this time I was about 14 years old, and I had asked my mom, I said, Mom, what would you do if, I said, has my dad ever hit you? What would you do if that ever happened? And I remember we were in the kitchen, we're doing something, and she turned around and she looked at me, and she said, one time. And I said, what? Because I was shocked, because my dad was there. I was shocked, and she said, one time. And I said, and what happened? And she said, I let him know that would be the one time and the last time. And it was. And my dad shifted in that situation.
Yeah,
My
that
dad
was a good man.
shifted. My dad shifted in that situation. My dad, like I said, never. So much more to where we never even got spanked because it was just like a moment of truth from my father. He could either continue and lose his wife and children, or he could change, and he chose to change. Now, I tell you that as a man that loved God,
Yeah.
but did not know the word like we know the word. So I know because of him, and I know because of what he did. I know that a person that knows, that can get into the word, that has the right counsel, that has the right learning and teaching, I know that they can change because my father did it and he did. You know, he made a choice to say, I will never do this again. So I know that there is a rescue in those situations. But a woman and a man should not stay in that situation and believe that rescue is going to come in the middle of the night when they're being beat. They need to leave that situation, get out of that situation, and believe God for change.
Yeah, well, because part of the damage is that sometimes it's like you have people that they're like, well, I can take this.
They don't need
but
to.
I know. I'm just saying to where their thing is, as long as I'm being beat or whatever, it's not the kids or somebody
It
else.
always goes to the kids next.
It'll
It
go
does.
that direction. But even this, that I've known so many people from abusive relationships where I've known daughters that became lesbians because they're like, I'll never allow a man to do what I seen my father do to my mom. I've known people
Yes.
that have changed their sexual preference because of abuse. Because I mean, think about people we've known that were in abusive situations to where they married someone that was abusive. We've seen people not non-Christian. You know, we've watched them become lesbians and stuff like that because they want nothing to do with a man. You know. And so it's such a big
When
thing.
it's not just
yeah.
that. I mean, some choose that, but others just go completely different.
But you know, this is such a huge thing, and I'm glad we took some extra time to talk about this. And I just want to say this, you know, if you've been enjoying, amen, the content that we've been sharing with you, we would love for you to prayerfully consider partnering with JBM, amen. We love you. We thank you, amen, for allowing us to minister into your lives. And we love taking like what we're sharing right now. These are huge subjects, and being able to share these with nations and share these with other people. And we're able to accomplish this through partnership with people like you that have been receiving and enjoying this. And so all the information for you to be able to partner is right there on your screen. But please prayerfully consider partnering with us and helping us reach more people.
And you know, I would like to just close by saying this, that if you find yourself in the situation to where abuse is happening in your life, we're going to have a phone number that's going to come up for you to be able to call and, you know, get some help, get some counsel, because we don't want to just share a message like this and leave you with, what do I do next? You know, find a church that can give you counseling. Find an organization that can help you get out of the situation that we're in. We care about you and we love you. God bless you.